If you had told me years ago that boundaries were my issue, I would have never fucking believed you because that just didn't resonate with me. And it's for that reason that one of the things I really try to do with my content is help people understand this issue that you're having. It can be cleaned up and healed by learning to build healthy boundaries. Hi, I'm Barb Nangle. I want to welcome you to my podcast, Fragmented to Whole, Life Lessons from 12-Step Recovery, where I help people heal their emotional, psychological, and spiritual wounds and make deep, lasting changes in their lives. I'm the founder and CEO of Higher Power Coaching and Consulting. I'm a boundaries coach who specializes in helping women who are focused on what others are thinking and doing and neglect themselves in the process. And I have coached hundreds of people on how to build healthy boundaries using my exclusive Build framework. On this podcast, I share my experience, strength, and hope from recovery. I don't support or endorse any particular 12-step recovery fellowship, and I don't claim to speak for any particular 12-step fellowship. I also don't believe that 12-step recovery is the only way to recover. You might need additional help. I'm an avid beachcomber who collects sea glass, shells, wood, and stones. I am a formerly closeted fan of the Hallmark Channel, especially the Christmas movies. Hello, Christmas in July. I wear fingerless gloves from September to June because my hands are always cold, so I have about 15 pairs. And I get a huge kick out of counting how many days, weeks, and months there are until my birthday or Christmas at completely random times of the year. My hope is that you'll find my words concretely helpful in improving your life, whether you're in recovery or not. If you like what you've heard on this episode, please screenshot it and share it on your social media and tag me at Higher Power Coaching. This is episode 211, What Life is Like Before and After Building Healthy Boundaries. The other day, I got a new client who told me that she had listened to the episode, which was a bonus episode between 13 and 14, where my client talked about what it's like to coach with me. And I was like, oh my God, she was one of my first clients. I was just a sort of generalized life coach at the time. I wasn't even a boundaries coach yet. And I really wasn't a very seasoned coach. Now I'm a seasoned boundaries coach, and I have lots of evidence that's way stronger than anything you might have heard on that podcast. So I thought what I would do today is share some of that evidence with you. So what I'm going to do is share from a handful of clients that I've worked with. I'll start by sharing what they came with me to work on. And then I'm going to share what they said afterwards, so you can get an idea of the transformation that can happen in working with me. And you can also get an idea of what it means to build healthy boundaries. If you had told me years ago that boundaries were my issue, I would have never fucking believed you because that just didn't resonate with me. And it's for that reason that one of the things I really try to do with my content is help people understand this issue that you're having. It can be cleaned up and healed by learning to build healthy boundaries. So that includes things like you don't know who you are, you don't know how to say no, you live in chaos all the time, you have guilt and shame and abandon yourself all the time, you don't know where you end and other people begin. You're terribly concerned with what other people are doing or thinking or saying, and you really want their approval. You're especially concerned with what they think of you, and you don't even really pay attention to what you think of you. You're super focused on what's going on outside of you. You don't know how to ask for help. You feel riddled with guilt and shame when you do. I mean, I could go on and on. These are all issues that can be cleaned up when you learn to build healthy boundaries. So here goes. All right, client number one, this is some of what she said. She said, the most difficult issue I have regarding boundaries is speaking up about them in the moment they need to be set and setting them in a kind manner. When I do set them, I've reached a boiling point and kind of shout them. I was inspired to talk with you, Barb, as I've known that she was a codependent for years, but I didn't understand codependence for what it really was until I came across Barb's podcast, which really opened my eyes to the disease helped me understand its role in my life and gave me the courage and hope to work on changing myself from within. My biggest problem in breaking through this is the need for others to regard me highly and disappointing others. I just watched my parents' marriage crumble to pieces, so I fear my relationship will fall apart if I don't get my shit together. I also fear growing up and not being strong. This was a 26-year-old woman, by the way. I want to be a strong person, and that's something that I want people to see in me. Strong people have boundaries. People who are sure of themselves have boundaries, and I want to have kids and want to teach them boundaries. So after her 12-week private coaching program with me, this is what she had to say. It was a hot summer day when I found Barb, and I was feeling very disappointed with myself for how easily gossip was coming out of my mouth. Blaming others, judging others, and talking about things that weren't my business felt so much easier than holding back and keeping the focus on myself. In a fit of frustration, I put on my rollerblades, typed gossip into the podcast search bar on my phone, put on my headphones, and took off into the beating afternoon heat. Luckily for me, what resulted that came from typing that evil little word into the search bar was Barb Nagle's voice through my headphones, the way she spoke, the content of her lesson, and the way I felt when the 18-minute podcast episode, Stop Gossiping, episode 12, she says, when the 18-minute episode ended was truly groundbreaking for me. Within a month, I had listened to almost every podcast Barb had out. It felt like they were made for me. Within 2 months, I was signed up for Barb's 12-week Better Boundaries private sessions. Within 4 weeks with Barb, I had experienced more growth than I had experienced in 4 years with my private therapist. The person I have become with the help of Barb's guidance is a person that I, for once in my life, truly love. The person I spent years hoping, wishing, and wanting to become is now living in my body. The best part, this same person, the one who couldn't mind her own business, who was easily perturbed by the behavior of others, and who felt cloudy and unsure on what she felt / needed / wanted in her life, just needed to learn how to create boundaries for herself. I had spent so much of my life blaming others, thinking that if they would change, I would be okay. In the end, with Barb's help, I've learned to take responsibility for my contribution to the chaos in my life, to fix what I have the power over to fix, and to let my higher power handle the rest. Oh, and this is coming from a girl who a year ago would have told you she isn't spiritual and doesn't know what to think about God. Barb will tell it to you straight, will hold space for you when it all feels too heavy, and will help guide you towards being a person that you can be very, very proud of. Barb has changed my life, and I am forever grateful. My heart is so warmed. All right, so this is client number 2. I often fall into self-doubt when I'm trying to set and maintain boundaries, especially in intimate relationships. I think I'm afraid of making people angry, and so I do my best to control myself in a way that prevents that. I'm in a majorly transformation moment in my life, and I'm actively working toward a new path. I heard Barb as a guest on another podcast. She was so inspiring that I had to start listening to Fragmented to Whole, and everything I heard there is so resonant. I felt like that intense boundary work is necessary for me. I feel like every single relationship except maybe one has been a train wreck. I see how impactful relationships can be in others' lives and the value and beauty they bring to it. I don't think I can have that without boundaries. All my values went out the door in my previous relationships. If I don't work on this, I'll just stay in the exact same place the rest of my life, become an alcoholic, fall back into the same patterns, and a healthy relationship will elude me. And I'll become a really lonely person if I don't do this work. It will become pathological. I won't be successful socially. I'll throw myself into my work and not have a dynamic life. And here's what she said afterwards. I needed to set boundaries with an ex and my parents. This was unconscious at the time, but I knew that I couldn't do it alone and I needed support. So I sought out Barb. I went into the program seeking support for personal relationship boundaries, but ended up learning a ton about how to have boundaries at work too. I started to see that lessons about boundaries permeate every aspect of life. I've managed to maintain the boundaries I set with the ex and my parents. Although this has steered me into uncharted life territory, which is weird and terrifying at times, I've never felt freer, and I've never had such clarity about where I begin and end in relationships. I feel as if I'm starting fresh in life. If you need to set any kind of boundary in your life, if you want to learn more about how you're showing up in relationships, working with Barb will change your life. You'll start to see yourself more clearly and you'll have more agency. Her knowledge, insights, and approach are powerful and effective. Okay, that's it for her. Gotta say, I love that word, agency. All right, this is client 3. She said, I don't know how to stand up for myself and communicate my needs without feeling badly or offending or hurting or causing conflict with the other person. I have an aversion to conflict and I tend to people please and enable. I was married to someone who was an alcoholic for 15 years. He stopped drinking 4 years after we divorced. He's still very involved in my daughters and my life, and his behavior remains difficult for me to handle effectively. I thought working with Barb might be a good place for me to start. If I don't work on this, I'll continue to have welcome written across my forehead, and I'll continue to be a doormat. I still have time to show my daughter how to be and how I can walk the talk because she's still living with me. I want to be able to be the example. I need to be the living example for my clients too. And I need this work to accomplish everything else I want to accomplish. The true root is self-love. And if I don't do this work, I will be filled with even more disappointment and regret that I wasn't able to overcome these limiting beliefs, habits, and behaviors when I have the power to do it if I don't follow through on this now. And here's what she said afterward. She said, I cannot thank you enough for all you did to help me begin to create better boundaries. Working with you was a true pleasure and an honor. Your efforts, creativity, and skill in creating a thorough, comprehensive, and accessible program are to be applauded. Clearly, you put your heart and soul into it, and that is what makes the difference. You are truly an inspiration, Barb. You embody and exemplify what is possible when an individual comes from a place of integrity, commitment, and love. Thank you doesn't seem like enough to say for the extraordinary difference you made in my life. I remain forever grateful and appreciative of the time we spent together. Here's what changed as a result of my coaching with you. I'm getting better at managing my time. I no longer feel bad or guilty about saying no. I no longer feel like I am responsible for anyone's happiness, misery, or any other emotion or condition. We're all 100% responsible for our own emotions and conditions because they stem from our own perspectives. I cannot be responsible for anyone else's perspective but mine. I use the expression you coined, info versus ammo, which, by the way, I didn't coin that. I just share it all the time, which helps me remember not to be self-recriminating because I made a mistake or had an unpleasant experience or feel hurt, anger, frustration, or pain. Instead, I notice the feeling and the situation and use it as information for improvement. I use the phrase, keep the focus on yourself, to remind myself to not give unsolicited advice and to be mindful of my audience and to not give credence to other people's negative input or opinions. I learned to see where I was enmeshed and realized the need to pull back and establish boundaries and not feel responsible if I attended to my needs instead of theirs. Although I was aware of many of my limiting beliefs, I didn't know how to change them. The workbook, podcasts, and articles all contributed to helping me shift those beliefs and recognize how they were holding me back. And that by taking care of myself, saying no, keeping the focus on myself, seeing negative situations and thoughts as info, not ammo, I could be more beneficial to others. All right, client number 4. I keep handing out my difficult feelings to other people I love, hoping they will/can validate them enough so that I don't feel broken and alone and unlovable. I don't think I understand how to safely feel love and connection because I'm always projecting abandonment. I hope that if I can understand how to effectively own my side and stop handing it over to my husband, child, mother, and siblings, my life will be more my own and my relationships will be healthier. I just want some direction. Finding a therapist who's truly skilled in this and who has really done some of their own work seems close to impossible. That's why I want to work with Barb. I am not in a great place. I feel like it's the end of the world with my son because I'm so afraid of abandonment now that he's in love and creating a life with someone else. I think it's my fear that's creating this divide. If I don't work on this now, I'm going to lose my son. He's not going to want to be around me, and that scares me. My mother-in-law didn't allow her son's wives to change the relationships she had with her sons. She didn't try to change them and didn't put a lot of energy into what she didn't have. So I'd love for my son to make the mistakes he needs to make without me being so fragile and afraid. It's painful for me because I spend a lot of time in my head. I project a lot. I'm very empathic. When I can tell there's a problem, I spend a lot of energy trying to confirm there's a problem rather than taking care of myself or assuming it will all work out. This has the potential to make me sick because I feel physically impacted by my lack of boundaries. And here's what she had to say after our 12-week coaching program, which I forgot to say, all of these people have done my 12-week coaching program. I reached out to Barb at a point of great emotional distress. I believe grief was at the core of my anguish. My established coping strategy, established as a child in a dysfunctional family, was failing me. In the 2 years prior, I'd experienced a lot of loss, so my abandonment wound was inflamed. I was relentlessly and desperately trying to keep the remaining precious people in my life from abandoning me. My most cherished relationship with my 25-year-old son was dramatically changing. We'd gone from a healthy relationship to one where my fear of losing his love was at the center of every interaction. In retrospect, I see now that I was figuratively and literally chasing him and begging him to tell me he loves me and that he will never leave me. Fear was driving me to place my focus, my well-being, my worthiness in the hands of everyone else. I had realized I did this as a child with my family, but this, quote, defect was less apparent in my relationships as an adult. Until now. The pain and my dysfunctional response to my deep grief was severe enough for me to seek help. I am a resourceful problem solver and cast a broad net that included an online mother wound course, one-on-one therapy, group therapy, attending a weekly 12-step program, and various podcasts on healing the inner child and childhood trauma. I was listening to the Adult Child podcast, and Barb was the guest being interviewed. I connected with everything she said. I listened to several of Barb's Fragmented to Whole podcast and scheduled a complimentary session. After speaking with Barb, I was confident she would be able to help me. In working with Barb and following her curriculum, I came to understand that keeping the focus on myself and always acting in a way that is aligned with my values will be the only way to have true intimacy with the people I love. When the ability to have connection and closeness fails, I will remind myself that how someone else receives me is none of my business, and how I choose to feel is only up to me. I will remember that I cannot pick up milk at the hardware store. I now have clear and simple tools that I can use to navigate my life and my relationships. My life is full, and I will have opportunities to apply these same tools to new challenges. Life has always shown me what deserves my attention and when I need to make changes. In this case, my discomfort was a signal for change. I feel very fortunate that my higher power led me to Barb Nangle. Her support was essential for me to understand what I was doing and why it was not working. She explained what I needed to understand to make meaningful change. Only with her guidance have I been able to begin establishing and maintaining healthy boundaries in my life. The change has been very promising, and I am filled with renewed hope. Okay, that should give you an idea of the kinds of issues people come to me for coaching with, as well as the types of results you can get from working with me. As one of these clients said, boundaries permeate every single area of your life. So chances are, no matter what your issue, I can probably help. I was recently reminded by a friend that when I first started recovery, I didn't feel lovable. I almost can't believe that I used to feel that way and that I kind of forgot something so profound because I truly love myself now. And I want that for everybody. If you don't love yourself, there's literally nothing that can make up for that. I created something exclusively for my private clients since many of them don't love themselves. And I've now opened up my private vault to share it with up to 10 people individually. It's called the Self-Love Sprint. You'll grow to love yourself and truly feel worthy so you can stop saying yes when you really want to say no, stop neglecting yourself and putting everyone else first. Stop saying all kinds of nasty shit to yourself. That is not what people who love themselves and feel deserving do. You'll stop being afraid that others will think that you're selfish for taking time to care for yourself. This is also for you if you don't really know who you are because you've always been such a fucking chameleon. Go to higherpowercc.com/love sprint. Remember, I'm only offering 10 of these, so don't wait. If you like this podcast, and I'm guessing you did or you wouldn't still be listening, then you're gonna love the other things I have to offer. If you'd love pre-release podcast scripts and episodes before anyone else gets them, or if you'd love access to content from my private vault that I developed exclusively for my private clients, which is like having a work session with me without me actually being there, go to patreon.com/higherpowercoaching. There are 3 tiers ranging from as low as $4 up to $24 a month. You'll also love my weekly newsletter, Friday Fragments, which has content very similar to the podcast. You can check it out at fridayfragments.news. That's fridayfragments.news. Please like and subscribe to my podcast on your favorite podcast outlet. I'd also love it if you'd leave a review, which you can do either in the show notes or on Apple Podcasts. It really helps other people find my podcast so they can get the benefits you've gotten from listening. If someone came to mind when you listened to this particular episode, please share it with them. And my favorite place to hang out on social media is Instagram. I'm at Higher Power Coaching. Please DM me there. I'd love to hear what you got from this episode. I run group and private coaching programs on building healthy boundaries. Whether you need help with boundaries in your personal, professional, or romantic life, I can help. Head on over to barbchat.net where you can hop onto my calendar for a free 30-minute Better Boundaries consultation. My ideal client is someone who is ripe for change. If that's you, I would love to work with you. My goal with all my work is to help you make lasting changes in your life like I've made deep, lasting changes in my life. Remember, it's never too late to recover. No one is beyond hope, and healing is possible. Thanks for listening.